Well, let's talk about making sense of it. What do you think is the big positive that gamers are missing about what NFTs like digits can offer them?
I think gamers don't get what the digital secondary market can bring to them for now because of the current situation and context of NFTs. Gamers really believe it first destroys the planet and second just a tool for speculation, but what we here at Ubisoft are seeing first is the end game. The end game is about giving players the opportunity to resell items once they're finished with them, or if they're finished with the game itself. So really, it's for them. It's really beneficial, but they don't get it for now.
The last year has seen a cacophony of announcements and statements along the line of this one by Ubisoft VP Nicolas Puard, promising that NFTs will be the future of gaming. Usually, these announcements are met with an extreme pushback and then a hilarious backpedal 2 days later, which is great and all. But if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, what does NFT game integration actually look like? What are these people actually trying to do? What's their goal? It's all well and good to tell people it's bad and you shouldn't want it. And trust me, it's bad and you shouldn't want it. But I realise that most people who aren't terminally online are only just starting to learn that NFTs are a thing. So I'd like to take some time to explain what they are and why, as a player of games, you should be absolutely terrified of this prospective future. So without further ado, strap in and pay close attention. Things are going to get complicated. To understand NFT integration for games, you need to understand NFTs, and to understand NFTs, you need to understand cryptocurrency, and to understand cryptocurrency, you need to be willing to learn a whole bunch of technical jargon, and unlearn a whole bunch of common sense. Really, the best source I could possibly give you is Dan Olson's Line Goes Up, a fantastic source of information on all things NFT and crypto, and a massive help in writing this video, let me tell you, but it is 2 hours long, so I'll try my best to give you the Cliff's Notes. Cryptocurrency is a form of digital decentralized currency which uses a system called the blockchain to record transactions and create new units of currency. The idea behind this, the sales pitch for why it exists, is that it's completely without regulation or oversight. The money in your crypto wallet is just yours. It doesn't have to be kept in a bank, it's not government issued, it's yours, which isn't the worst idea ever. Units of cryptocurrency are created via a process called mining, which is a bit of a misleading term because what you're really doing is dedicating a part of your computer's CPU to solving complex math problems. Because computational power is the basis for this currency. The system is also commonly called proof of work. You can also invest in a cryptocurrency the old-fashioned way by buying it with money. Any cryptocurrency you own is held in a digital wallet which you can use to buy, wait, why do I want this digital money again? The bigger question you probably have right now is, yeah, but what is it though? And that's a really hard thing to answer because a Bitcoin is a nothing. It doesn't exist. This is kind of the idea, right? It's a digital currency. A decent example should be game currencies that you get in most free-to-play games. But that example is misleading and part of a whole different conversation. Because as scummy as they are, V-Bucks don't have any real monetary value. They can't be exchanged back to real money. Cryptocurrency theoretically can. And that's what makes it so popular with speculators. Speculators and speculation are financial terms that refer to someone who buys something with the hope of making a profit later. For simplicity's sake, think of a house. You buy a house for $500,000 and then you sell it off 5 years later for $750,000. You've made a profit of $250,000 on that house. The important thing to understand here is that the speculator isn't buying the house to live in. They're buying the house because the house is an asset that gains value over time. They're also not just buying one house, they're buying a whole estate with the intention of making massive profits for massive investments. See Housing Bubble for more information on this one. This is the primary driving force of the stock market and also of cryptocurrency. But how does that fit? A house is an asset, but a cryptocurrency is a currency. How do you speculate on a currency? And what is it? What is a crypto coin? Okay, so you know how different currencies across the world are worth different amounts of money? Like, at the time I'm writing this, $1 Canadian is worth 60 pence in British pounds. Okay, so A little quirk of cryptocurrency not being regulated is that these values are open to gigantic swells in value compared to real currencies. Which means, as of the time on the clock writing this, one Bitcoin is worth $52,613.44 Canadian, which is up from last week when it was worth $48,133.86. It's highly volatile is what I'm saying, subject to change by things as important as wars and as simple as Elon Musk making a tweet. With those values in mind, we can revisit what I said earlier about how these currencies are generated, with computational power. In order to generate $52,000 worth of cryptocurrency, you need $52,000 worth of computational power. So anyone can theoretically mine for Bitcoin, but only the super rich will ever see a return on that investment. The fact that you can't actually buy anything with crypto makes the currency part of cryptocurrency pretty questionable, since I would argue that the primary thing that makes a currency is the ability to exchange it for goods and services. So, what is cryptocurrency? It's an online casino for the super rich. People spend exorbitant sums to buy in, with the hope of cashing out when the volatile exchange rates are at a peak to make money by selling their crypto to someone more gullible, then invest again in a different currency that's worth less in the hopes that it equally explodes in value. And yes, I will mention the environmental impact, thank you very much. Because as you can imagine, these million-dollar server farms chugging away day and night require a crapload of energy, with a genuine, measurable impact on the environment. These mining rigs combined use up the same amount of energy as a small country, which means these rich fucks are literally gambling with our lives on their made-up meme coins. Okay, so with that out of the way, and just to be clear, I am vastly oversimplifying all of this. Yes, this is the simple version. What is an NFT, or non-fungible token? You see, the problem with this randomly increasing value of cryptocurrency, meaning that only the richest can purchase it, is that only the richest can purchase it. And eventually these folks were just trading it amongst themselves and not actually making any of that delicious profit. In order to get that profit back, they gravitated towards a technology called NFTs. The basic idea of NFTs is to create a completely unique digital item, and by unique I mean there's only one of it. The easiest way to explain this is with visual metaphor. This is a Tim Hortons Scotland mug. It's a real thing, I can hold it in my hand, I can drink coffee out of it, and this is the only Tim Hortons Scotland mug in the world, which is this one. It's not the same as this Tim Hortons Scotland mug, this is a different mug. It looks quite similar, I could also drink my coffee from this one if I wanted to, but it's a different Tim Hortons Scotland mug. Most critically, there's a set amount of Tim Hortons Scotland mugs in the world, and since we've already accidentally broken two, there's at least two Tim Hortons Scotland mugs that no longer exist. This, on the other hand, is a picture of my dog. This picture is a purely digital thing. I can't hold it in my hand, and I can create infinite copies of it with 2 clicks. This is a fundamentally different thing. Getting right into it, this picture of my dog is a line of ones and zeros that together represent the picture of my dog. NFTs are an attempt to apply the essential thingness of the Tim Hortons Scotland mug to the picture of my dog by making digital things that are unique and individual and finite. That's the idea. That's the sales pitch. Here's where it gets confusing and where if, like me, you try and think about things logically, your brain's going to hurt. The most common application of NFTs seen on the internet are graphics. For simplicity's sake, we'll stick to the most well-known one, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. The idea of this and a lot of other digital art NFT projects is they are unique digital collectibles. Take this guy here. Bored Ape Yacht Club number 5539. He was the 5539th ape to be created in this collection, and he is the only ape in this collection who is this ape. He's a unique little monkey. Except, oh, wait a second, I can just, Now, if the fact that I can do that seems a bit contradictory to the things I was saying 10 seconds ago, that's because you've misunderstood. Because the NFT is not the image. This is not an NFT, this is a PNG. The NFT is a digital box with a hyperlink to a PNG that looks like this monkey. This digital box is stored on a blockchain, which means it also has a full list of previous transaction details and ownerships. The NFT is a receipt that shows you're the one who owns this PNG. And as you can see, brought back around, this digital box is bought using cryptocurrency. So, I hear you asking, what makes this different from commissioning an artist on Twitter and having them send you a PNG through email? Well, good question. On the surface of it, spending $20,000 on a link to a PNG sounds a lot like a scam. But surely there's more to it than this, right? Surely you own the copyright on the image or something, right? It cannot be this simple. No, all all these NFTs exist so that you'll buy into the crypto market, and that increases the value of the crypto market, and that makes those same rich fucks from before even richer. That's the point of NFTs, to make the rich richer. And they lure people in with the promise that maybe one day you could be the rich asshole too. Talking exclusively about NFT art project is misleading because the NFT is just a box with a line of code in it, and as such it can correspond to just about anything. Tweets, books, cooking recipes, literally anything you can think of that exists in a digital space can have an NFT linked to it, including, most important for our case and finally to the point of this video, video game items. Now that we have all this newfound context, let's revisit our opening quote by Ubisoft VP Nicolas Puard, and let's talk about what he was talking about, Ubisoft's foray into the NFT space with Ubisoft Quartz. So, on December 7th, 2021, Ubisoft released a trailer for Ubisoft Quartz, an NFT project where digits could be gathered and traded on the Tezos blockchain, with initial functionality for the game Ghost Recon Breakpoint. This trailer was subsequently met with so much backlash that they took the trailer off their channel, but the system stayed, and here's what the system is. After playing for a certain amount of time and creating a crypto wallet and linking it to the Tezos blockchain, on certain dates, players of the game would be able to claim free NFTs that represented in-game items. The first one was a gun, the second one was a helmet, etc, etc. They also called these NFTs digits instead of NFTs to try and hide the fact that they were NFTs from the general player base. You know, because they're a scam. Once claimed, the digits could be bought, traded and sold on the Ubisoft Quartz platform, which is where Ubisoft would make a small profit off of every transaction. I'm explaining this in past tense because by any metric, Ubisoft Quartz has been a total failure for Ubisoft. Based on external markets, the total volume of sales made at the time of writing equals 266.49 Tezons, which in Canadian dollars is equal to $1,081.64. That's nothing. And based on the costs of creating NFTs on the Tezos system, it's highly unlikely they've even broken even on this investment. Now, I could just stop here and say that the failure of Ubisoft Quartz proves that there's nothing to worry about. One of the biggest games in the AAA marketplace tried to integrate NFTs, and they failed. The market that they were expecting wasn't there. But here's what you need to understand. Ubisoft Quartz did not fail because it was a bad idea that nobody wanted. It failed because it was executed badly. To put on my conspiracy hat for a second, I wouldn't be shocked to learn that the developers who worked on this intentionally sabotaged it by designing it to be as unappealing as possible to both newcomers and NFT fans. Because if they really wanted this to succeed, they would have tried so much harder. Let's start with how Ubisoft Quartz failed to attract the interest of casual players. To the 6 people who are actually fans of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, this trailer is a highly weird, complicated and jargony way to explain the very simple thing they've actually made. A digital auction house for in-game items, a thing that's existed for decades. The important parts to get across to people new to the concept is that they're limited edition and that you can sell them. General players who've never heard of NFTs before do not care that they keep track of ownership history, that they're unique digital collectibles stored on a blockchain, that they use the energy-efficient Tezos blockchain to cut down on environmental impact, a detail that can only prompt a casual gamer to ask, hey, why would this system have any environmental impact at all? The trailer prioritizes the wrong things and also throws a bunch of new terms at people as if to be deliberately confusing. What is a Ubisoft Quartz? Is a quartz a different thing to a digit? But a digit is an NFT, and also a Tezos? So is it a quartz or is it a Tezos? It's like they were deliberately trying to be confusing. The second, arguably more important thing is that all of the NFTs they released are boring. Look at this. The process to claim this requires you to have at least 2 accounts, one with Ubisoft Quartz and one for a crypto wallet, as well as playing the game for at least 100 hours for this. A pair of tactical trousers with a serial number on it. What casual player is going to bother with all that hassle for an item that's so boring? At least make them bright pink or something, for God's sake. If they're not actually interesting items to own, then the only appeal of them to general players is the idea that you can sell them for real money. But they're boring. Who's going to buy them? NFT fanboys, perhaps? Well, the problem with that theory is that you have to play the game in order to earn the NFTs, remember? Something Ubisoft was very adamant about when promoting this system was they didn't want the quartz market to be saturated with speculators, and that the gameplay requirement was a way to weed out speculators from buying up the NFTs for purely speculative purposes. Well, it worked, as it turns out, asking NFT fans to play a game that by all accounts isn't very good for 600 hours for an in-game helmet with no clear speculative value results in nobody getting any of the NFTs. There are much, much easier and safer investments in the NFT space for speculators to choose from. With this system, Ubisoft successfully made something that appeals to almost no one. People who knew about NFTs were repulsed by the idea, people who didn't know about NFTs were confused and not bothered about the idea, people who actually like NFTs were deliberately excluded from the idea. See what I mean about self-sabotage? And then there's the final point that you might be asking yourself right now. Why does this digital auction house even need to use NFTs? Digital scarcity is not a new invention. It's existed as long as game economies have existed. You could create an in-game marketplace where you could buy and sell things for real money without tying yourself so explicitly to the crypto market, something which is widely understood to be a scam. The best theory I can come up with is that Ubisoft executives heard this term NFTs and how people were making lots of money off of it and tried to cash in on a trend. They put a bunch of unenthusiastic developers on the project who crapped out a system designed to fail. Nobody in this process actually cared about NFTs or trying to make NFTs mainstream. That's why the failure of Ubisoft Quartz doesn't bring me much comfort, because A, I don't think it was ever going to succeed, and B, this is by far the least malicious thing you can do with NFTs. Ubisoft Quartz is a glimpse into a dark, dark spiral. My description for Ubisoft Quartz probably doesn't sound all that malicious, does it? I mean, if you get rid of the weird NFT blockchain nonsense, it's eBay for in-game skins. And that's because Ubisoft Quartz is a bad integration of NFTs. It doesn't use them to their fullest potential. The future that developers in the crypto economy want, and the buzzword you'll hear most often around NFT games, is play to earn, a term we're going to be spending the rest of this video unpacking. The basic sales pitch of play to earn is pretty easy to understand. You play games, you earn money. As a sales pitch, it's pretty easy to see why it would gain traction. I like playing games, and I like money. Why not combine the two? Why not, indeed? By far the most popular NFT game out there is Axie Infinity, a Pokemon-esque game about breeding and fighting teams of creatures called Axies. But this is the game Dan Olson used as an example in his video, so for the sake of variety, I'm going to talk about a different game. Plants vs. Undead. Plant vs. Undead is an NFT-based tower defense game that is entirely and completely different to Plants vs. Zombies. I don't know where you'd even get that idea. Your goal is to defend your mother tree from attacking monsters with plants, each with unique special abilities. All of the plants are, of course, NFTs, and so are the mother trees. They can be bought and traded on the NFT marketplace with the game's own cryptocurrency, PVU tokens. Surviving a round will net the player PVU tokens that can be spent on getting better plants, or convert to money. That seems simple enough, right? Of course not. Nobody actually plays this mod. This mod isn't where the real money is. To start making cash, you need to be playing the farming mode. So here's what you do. You buy some PVU and you convert that to LE, light energy. Then you buy yourself a pot and a sunflower sapling. You see, the sunflower sapling will passively generate LE every few days, but only if you water them and scare away crows with scarecrows. So you're going to need to buy some water and some scarecrows. You'll have to monitor your sunflower sapling's water supply and check it has no crows constantly, because crows or lack of water will halt its LE production. You can also go into other people's gardens and take care of their plants too. Look for unwatered plants and water them to earn LE, and for crows, which you can scare for LE, each of the LE returns are determined by chance off these charts. Now you can convert LE back to PVU tokens at a rate of 70 LE to 1 PVU, and a PVU currency has a rapidly fluctuating value that currently sits at 0.076999 USD. Well, to be fair, that's what it's worth now. At its peak in August, PVU was worth around $24. But then the game economy crashed because they accidentally gave everyone a whole bunch of really cheap sunflower saplings. And that crashed everything because another perk of sunflower saplings is you can exchange 100 of them for a seedling that will grow onto a new NFT plant to be used in the other mod. But also, they can be planted to gain a passive LE income as well, but only if they're well watered and free of crows, of course. Or, instead of that, you can just sell them on the NFT market, where because the game economy was doing so well, they could easily be sold for prices up to $1,000. And basically every casual player of the game did that and then cashed out their PVU, meaning it totally drained the value of PVU because they took their money and they didn't come back. I think I explained all of that correctly. I'm like 65% sure. Now if you're confused, don't worry, you're supposed to be confused. That's the whole point. You know how pickpockets create a distraction so you can't feel their hand in your pocket? This is the tech and finance lingo version of that. By far, the hardest thing about writing this video is that when I try to do research to try and understand this game on the most basic, fundamental level, I met with videos like this.
If you're able to get 3, let's say, PVU a day, you just need to save up for a month and you'll be able to get your first plant. Once you've got your first plant, which I purchased my very first one today, I've decided now to invest in this game. You have a 1% chance with a big pot to get seeds. If you get seeds, you get another plant. And 2 plants increases your chances, 1% on each plant then, to be able to farm seeds.
That language, though, is kind of exactly my point. Nobody talks about this game like it's a game. They talk about it like it's an investment opportunity. Nobody is out here playing Plant vs. Undead for fun. They're all playing it to try and make money. Nobody plays the game part of the game because the game part is an inefficient way to make money. And also because crypto technology is famously slow, and all games that actually use it as part of their game are painfully slow. This is basic stuff. If you give people a way to make money, they will find the most cost and time efficient way to make that money. Or rather, people on YouTube will, and then other people will look up the YouTube videos. You might be thinking, same as I did, that this would be extremely easy to automate. Set up as many accounts as you can and program a bot that constantly clicks on plants to water them. I mean, I couldn't do that, but any developer worth their salt could, so obviously, that happened. And the developers had to put in some sort of measures to stop it from happening. By the way, after accidentally tanking the value of their currency, a lot of people in the community accused the whole thing of being a scam, because as the currency was dropping in value, the developers withdrew almost 80,000 PVU from the market. But if it was a scam, it wasn't a very successful one, because they're still trying to support the game 5 months later. To be honest, most of what I was talking about was based on the game at its peak, and is not true anymore as the devs try increasingly random things like adding fishing minigames to try and revive the game. My guess is that the developers invested a lot of money into this project and never saw the return on their investment, so now they're trying desperately to salvage it. But let's ignore that for now. Let's assume it's not a scam and just have a look at the game as it existed at its peak. Let's assume they didn't accidentally tank their economy and fuddle through to the next logical step. The desirable thing to happen for everyone in this system is for the value of PVU tokens to keep rising. At its peak, 1 PVU was worth $24, but let's say it goes to 100, 500, 5,000. Eventually the cost of entry for PVU is so high that most people cannot afford to start the game. Well, the value of PVU can only increase and maintain as long as people are buying into it. Let's add you into this equation. You started playing this game when PVU was worth $1 and now you have 50,000 PVU. You could cash out now, or you could set up 50 accounts and put 5 PVU into each and start giving new players access to these accounts to start more farms for you at a 60% cut of the PVU generated. Maybe some of those farmers aren't generating as much PVU as they could be, so you start setting minimum quotas. And you cut off those people who aren't generating enough PVU and give their accounts to someone who can. Eventually you make it so that in order to maintain access to the account, they need to be running the farms as a full-time job. And hey, if that sounds like you have 50 full-time employees working for you, and you might be legally required to, say, provide health insurance and holidays and paid sick leave, just make sure you only get these players from foreign countries with less strict labour laws, like the Philippines for example. And in case it wasn't clear yet, this isn't a hypothetical, this is the inevitable endpoint of a play-to-earn game. This is exactly the situation going on with Axie Infinity, where companies offer scholarship programs to poor and struggling folks in poor countries who, especially due to COVID, are desperate for money and don't mind being treated like shit by a venture capitalist in America to put food on the table. And then they have the audacity to sell what they're doing as a humanitarian effort. This is what you want. This is what everyone who plays these games wants. They want to be the boss. They want to have 50 accounts in poor countries giving them 60% of their profits because the economic situation forced them into it. This is not a game. This is pure, unrefined, hyper-capitalism. Thousands of people on the verge of starvation generating digital love potions for anonymous crypto millionaires. That is the desired, ideal endpoint of the play-to-earn model. How fucking depressing is that? This is why the idea of NFT games reaching the mainstream isn't silly or annoying to me. It's terrifying. It's a worldview that sees no value in art that can't be made to make money, that sees no value in things that can't be sold. A worldview that if they got everything they wanted, would be the end of everything I treasure. To any NFT hyper defenders out there who are going to tell me that I'm ignoring the future, that I didn't explain plant versus undead correctly, that I just don't get it, I want to leave you with a message. You are not the boss. You will never be the boss. It doesn't matter how many people are in your employ or how much money you're making by gaming the system. There's always going to be someone one rung up the ladder from you, someone who's taking advantage of you, someone who would happily profit off of your suffering.